Can a business text a customer? We're going to answer that question in this video. Okay, let's rock. Let's talk about, can a business text a customer? It's a great question. Before we answer that question, I want you to Google and do some basic research on the TCPA. That's T like Tom, C like Charlie, P like Paul, A like Apple. TCPA. I believe it stands for the Telephone Consumer Protection Act, and it was enacted in like 1991. So many years ago, what, 30 years ago, nearly 30 years ago. And so the idea behind this was, if everybody remembers back then, we were all getting pestered with telemarketer calls, calling our houses nonstop, trying to sell us something, and we didn't like it, right? So they changed the laws. And as it evolved, you know, we went into pagers, we went into cell phones, it kind of morphed into that. Because I can tell you this, in 1991, correct me if I'm wrong, but we didn't have text messaging. At least the standard, the masses didn't have it. I'm sure some government agencies probably had some phone that was like this big that could actually text or something like that. But for the most part, there was no way to text, to send a text message from one point to another in 1991 when this whole law was enacted, okay? And so what's a little bit interesting about it is that after, 29 years now, almost 30 years, this thing has morphed into the fact that people have to opt in, right? So customers have to opt in and want to receive those texts. And then furthermore, there's additional language that you have to let the customers know, right? I learned this because one of my businesses actually a couple of years ago ended up getting sued over it. It was the dumbest thing in the world. And I'm like, how is this even possible? And it was funny because at the time we had just gotten open, and the only people pretty much for the most part that were on the text messages were like friends and family, because we had like friends and family night. And we had some customers, right? Because we had been open for, I don't know, a month or 2 months. So we had a small amount of customers that had come in. So there really wasn't a lot of people that were on that list or whatnot. And then we end up getting hit with this class action lawsuit, which was ridiculous. And so as we went through that, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about text messaging, right? And I'm not the complete authority, but I'm here to share some wisdom with you so you can kind of understand some of the basics and the do's and the don'ts. The best thing to do if you have any questions about the legalities is to find an attorney that specializes in the TCPA law, okay? There are attorneys that actually on the aggressive side, they're suing people that are taking advantage of the system and looking for businesses that have a lot of locations, have a lot of money that they can sue, and then if they can't get what they want, maybe settle out of court and get a bunch of money. There are some vulture attorneys that are doing that, okay? And then there's actual people that are, you know, really getting bothered and pestered by businesses that are like, look, these businesses won't stop. I've told them to stop. They keep bugging me. They're harassing me. They're doing this, I'm sure, to tons of people, and they have legitimate concerns. And so what I feel as a consumer, if I'm thinking from the consumer side, is the reason they make consumer protection laws is to protect the consumer from being harmed, okay? So when you start talking about being harmed, of course, that's arguable in court, like, hey, my client was harmed, whatever. But getting a simple text message when you have unlimited texts and unlimited data, as most people do, at least in our neighborhood, right? Out here in Overland Park, Kansas, which is where this business was, most people have unlimited text, or if they don't have unlimited data, it's a lot, but it's not going to cost them anymore. They're not getting harmed by getting a text, right? And they've always got the ability to type stopped or click no, or hit no and click send, and it unsubscribes them. So it's a very archaic law that needs to be changed. I would imagine the judges at some point are going to, you know, have to change the laws because it's kind of gotten out of hand, right? But what you need to understand, which is what you're probably wondering is, are there any legal ramifications for sending text messages to customers? And the answer is yes. You have to be careful. You don't want to just open up the floodgates and just start texting customers, because all it takes is one of them to be an attorney and want to take the time to come after you or something like that, and then you're into a mess, right? Well, what I learned, which was like the dumbest thing in the world, and this was like I said, after going through it, is they were like, the law had read something like, you know, if you're guilty or whatever, you owe like $500, in between like $500 and, was it between $500 and $1,000 or $500 and $1,500 per text message you sent. So maybe you sent 1,000 text messages one time in a campaign. That'd be like $500,000 to $1.5 million that you're liable for. It's like the dumbest. It doesn't make any sense. Like the numbers don't add up. And most small businesses, even if a court order came against them, they just have to file bankruptcy, right? They're like, well, geez, I only got like 20 grand in my operating account. I guess I can give you all 20 grand and just file bankruptcy and then I'm done, right? And then I guess I just start another business and never send text messages again, right? So it's kind of sad, you know, they kind of spoiled it because most of the people are engaging on their cell phones. And if if a business has their number, in most cases they've opted in. So that's what you have to understand, is that the customers have to want to receive them. They have to opt in. And so as long as they opt in and you keep up with whatever the newest versions of this TCPA is, right? Whatever updates or whatever they've done to it, you know, you should be fine. In most cases, right? You could get sued. You can get sued for anything in this world, for any reason whatsoever. If somebody wants to come after you, just know that. So texting, if you're going to use a platform, you know, at the time we were using Skipio, right? There's a lot of different text messaging platforms. Just know that when you're a business and you're sending text messages out to your customers, there's specific language that needs to be in there, right? You need to say, this is going from memory. You need to say what's the frequency going to be of you sending text messages? So like you're going to send it once a week, a few times a month. You do need to state some language like message and data roaming charges may apply, something like that. Again, look it up. All this stuff actually has to be stated, right? Give them the option to opt out, right? And then you had to have had them opt in the first place, right? So it's important that if you're going to start sending text messages, that you're careful about doing it, that you've consulted your legal counsel, your lawyer, your attorney, and you've asked them, hey, you know, am I fine with this and whatnot? And if so, that decision's ultimately going to be up to you. I'm not going to tell you to do it or not, but I am going to tell you one thing. I do know from personal use that cell phones are in, right? We're all on our cell phones nonstop. So it is a very good form of marketing and great for customer retention, right? It is, but you just have to make sure that you do it within the law. Okay, everybody, I hope I answered your question, whether or not a business can text a customer. Well, absolutely they can. Now, whether or not you're going to get in trouble, like I did, I got slapped on the wrist, right? And ended up getting through that mess, and thank God that's in the past, but I learned from my mistakes, right? And you apply it for the future, and I'm hoping to share wisdom from what many consider, as Keith Cunningham calls it, the dumb tax, right? Do not pay money if you don't have to in business. If you can learn from somebody else's mistake, take their advice and save yourself a bunch of money and heartache. Okay, so if you like the video, please like it, share it with your friends and family, and feel free to comment. I'd love to hear whatever questions you have. Again, I'm not the authority on the TCPA. That's for your attorney. If you have any questions on what other kind of videos you'd like me to do or suggestions, please comment below because I'm always looking for new ideas. And remember to subscribe. And also, like I like to remind everybody, if you go through tough times, and we all do in life, personal and in business, never give up. Push hard, keep pushing, and be the hustler.